Hi, welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White. I'm your host and founder and CEO of the Bobby White Foundation. I want to welcome you. It's been kind of crazy week, and after last week with our lights falling and stuff, it started again today, but I think I got them taped up. So hopefully we don't have any incidences. But I want to thank John with Area 52 Media Group for producing this and helping us get information out to you guys and let me talk to you about the hard stuff. And of course, Joseph in the background doing all of my tech work. He's pretty awesome. So really want to thank them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to be here. And then also our sponsor, Dylan Gaston with the mortgage firm, Anything Mortgages. I mean, anything, please, give her a call, even if you're just not sure, because things right now with everything, it's just really kind of crazy. And if you want somebody that is just, she's just that person that can help you with anything with mortgages, getting pre-qualified, getting questions answered, just she's your gal. I just can't say enough about her. So anyway, so let's get into some stuff. I want to remind everybody we do have our support groups coming up for May. The one in Spring Hill will be what group is it? On May 14th at the NAMI Hernando office, and the Newport Richey West Pasco one is going to be May 15th at the Oasis Coffee Spot. This month, May, our main facilitator, Kathy, will be at the Spring Hill location, and then the Newport Richey one, my co-facilitator, will be facilitating that meeting because that week I'm on a cruise. So I'm looking forward to that, getting a break, especially after this week. I hurt my back and it's still pretty achy, and so it's been a rough week. And I shouldn't complain because there's a lot worse stuff going on out there. But man, when your back hurts, it's hard to get some things done. We didn't even tape on our regular day because I just couldn't even concentrate. But anyways, yeah, it's just things that I planned have just everything is pushed back. But because April is the month, that we lost Bobby to suicide, and so many other days fall in April to the passing of both my in-laws and then their anniversary. Actually, their anniversary is Earth Day, so that's kind of a good thing too. I think they would have been married 75 years or something. I mean, it was crazy. But yeah, so it just is a lot of stuff. And I try to, for April, not to plan a whole lot of stuff, to be super busy. And this month I kind of did that, and then I kind of didn't do it. I really wanted to start painting the house. I got the cottage painted for the business, and the house needs to be painted. I think I did the cottage 3 years ago. And so my goal was to get the house painted. Well, we're almost to the end of the month, and then hurting my back, so I haven't even begun painting the house yet. It's frustrating, but I have a little bit been able to get ready for where I had mentioned, I think last week, maybe the week before, that with our upcoming fundraiser in September, Art for Hope, which is our major fundraiser, we're kind of changing things up a bit. So we have our volunteer meeting will be Monday. So if you're local and you want to help and volunteer for Art for Hope, we will be at the Hilton Garden Inn, 5:30, 6 o'clock till about 7. And so I'm bringing in some test pieces that we're working on because we're changing up the artwork. Typically, we've had mostly wall art, prints, original paintings, photographs, things like that. And we've had some input from some people that they would like different types of art. So we're going to switch that up. But one of the pieces I did again, I always do that piece behind me, Hope, that's going to be that is actually a canvas piece that one of our volunteers, Kim, picked up that we will raffle off. It's going to be a door prize for those in attendance. And Kim, who is she's great. She has been our MC the last few years. She is actually on her way to London to run in the London Marathon this weekend. So if you happen to catch anything about the London Marathon, our MC Kim Romanowski is running in the London Marathon this week, and I'm just so proud of her. She's ran in several marathons this year, and I think this is a first for her to run in the London Marathon. So that's exciting. I'm really proud of her for doing that. Glad I remembered that. She's been a tremendous help through the last several years with Art for Hope, and she also is a loss survivor. She lost her father to suicide several years ago. And she does, like with everybody, I mean, it's hard. And she has done some things for me and for our organization on our fundraising efforts that I know is really hard. Emotionally, sometimes it can take its toll, but she's done some things that I'm just so proud of her for her growth and working through her pain and her tragedy, and being able to help others through our organization also. So that's really cool. And so anyways, yes, London Marathon this weekend. So anyways, so I had showed last week some pendants that one of the things that we're going to be doing is glass fusing. And so I made some pendants, and there was a pendant that was broken that I showed you last week. And so now the pendant isn't broken. And if you can see that gold line that goes through there, that's a technique called, I'm going to get it wrong again, Kenzuku. It's a Japanese technique of using gold and glue to put broken pieces back together again. And I think the technique is apropos for kind of what we're going through. Going through this tragedy and trauma, it breaks us, or it can break us, and we can put ourselves back together with work even more beautifully than we were before. So bringing this technique, which I am also with other things, bringing the technique into some of the services that I offer through the gallery. So there'll be other things too. So also part of it is making concrete vessels. And the ones that I've done so far, they're not painted yet, but I've been pouring concrete vessels for candles, for plants. And ironically, those turned out really good. Those were my first ones, except for the one does have a crack in the bottom, but that can be fixed too. So anyway, so these are just test things that we're doing. And the oblong one I did, I put some succulents in it, and it turned out really pretty nice. I can't believe how expensive succulents are. So I put 3 succulents in there. And when I went to Lowe's to get them, to make a sample thing out of it, I was like, man, these little suckers are expensive. Each one, little teeny tiny plant was $5. I was like, really? But anyway, so hopefully over the weekend when my back is feeling better, I'm going to be making more vessels and then doing some different painting techniques. And ironically, one of the vessels that I tried to make yesterday didn't turn out too good. I was trying to use a formula that they suggested instead of just doing it my way, and it didn't work out. My way was much better, so I'm going back to my way. But when I unmolded the vessel part of it broke. And so I was like, okay, let's just set you aside and we'll let you continue to dry. And then we'll do the Japanese technique on it and we'll rebuild it and make it different and better. So I haven't even gone out to look at it yet. So I'll show you the steps of that as we go along. So anyways, taking, some other, bringing in other ideas of things that will be available at Art for Hope. There's a gentleman here in town who turns bowls. I want to get in touch with him, and hopefully we can have a couple of his bowls available at Art for Hope. Also, I started macrameing again, and it's something I did, when I was really young, back the hippie days. And I showed part of it a few shows ago, and so I made this really cute. It's a cat hammock. So I haven't figured out where I'm going to hang it yet, or if I'm going to have to probably make like a hammock kind of thing, and those little tie things on the four corners. You just pull it up and. So anyway, but I finished it. So there's going to be a few more different patterns and ideas and stuff that we're going to bring in, fiber arts. We'll also have, I forgot to do that. I'll show next week. The antique truck door that our nieces painted with the lyrics to a John Lennon song. Will be available. So we're going to have a whole lot of different types of art, and we will have some wall art because Lord knows I still have a ton of that. But we're just going to bring in all different types of art this year, so have something different. And I think it's our 8th annual. So we're excited about that. So a lot of new stuff coming up, and for Art for Hope this year. So we're excited about that. So, what this month has just been, really kind of crazy, and I can't believe that it's almost over already. But I read a lot, but I'll usually just read to learn stuff, I guess. And my aunt's been bugging me for quite a while to just read, like for fun, like for no reason, not to learn anything per se, or just for the enjoyment of reading just a regular book, which I do have some, but I just typically don't read them. But like I read, this is what I do, our wilderness book, which we'll talk about that a little bit here. But over the past little over a month, I got this book, and I have some here. I think you can see which way. This way, yeah, that way. Cookbooks that belong to Bobby. Years ago, when we first started together, he didn't have any kind of hobby or anything, and it kind of like. I always had things that I wanted to do and make, or whatever, but he didn't. So I'm like, you need to find a hobby. So one day he was like, I found a hobby. I figured out what my hobby's going to be. I'm like, okay, what is it? And he said, cooking. Because my hobby's going to be cooking. And I thought, oh wow, that's going to be great, because guess what? I'll get really good into that deal. So one of the first cookbooks and authors that he started collecting was the Frugal Gourmet. So we have tons of Frugal Gourmet cookbooks. I think we have every single one that he published. And so we have a collection of cookbooks. And throughout the years, that is something that had continued with him and I. And when Food Network came out, I love that. It was actually a saving grace after he died. I watch it all the time because I don't want to watch the news. But one of the cooks or chefs, I don't think she likes to be called a chef, but she is a cook, which I have many, many favorites, is Ina Garten, and she came out with a memoir, and I thought, okay, I'll read her memoir. Then it's and I haven't read like a whole book that wasn't a learning book in I don't even remember how long. So I started reading this book, and I would read it at night before bed because I figured, I still have a hard time going to sleep. Nighttime is probably the hardest time of the day for me still, and so I would read it at night. I'd go to bed and read it for a little while, and usually if I read, then I get tired and it's easy to fall asleep. But anyway, so I started reading this book, and very interesting. I mean, she's had a tremendously interesting life, and people think that people that are famous that they've had it easy, that they got famous really easy, and that's just not the case. They have really hard times just like we do. I mean, they're just like us. They're just doing something different. And she didn't have an easy life or an easy time. She worked really, really hard, and anybody that watches her shows is familiar with her husband Jeffrey, who's really smart, and they're just an adorable couple. That they went through really hard times, and their marriage almost didn't even make it. And but it was an interesting book, and so I was night by night I was getting through it, and then I was like maybe a little past 3/4 of the way through it this past week, and my back was killing me, and I woke up in the middle of the night. I don't know, it was like 2:45 in the morning, and I'd only been asleep a couple hours. Felt like I'd been asleep though for a long time, because at least in those couple hours I got some sleep pain free. But so I woke up at, like I said, I think we were like around 2:45, and I thought, well, I'm wide awake. I don't want to get into my brain, and so I'm like, well, start reading, your book. I had it right beside me, so I started reading the book, and this is the book, and started reading it, and I read it until 6:30 in the morning, and I finished it. The first time I finished just a book, just to read it, for no other reason but just to read it. But it was a good book, and I was talking to my cousin about it. She's like me, she watches the cooking shows, and we talk about stuff all the time, and so I was telling her that I had read this book and I'd finished it, and I was like, especially towards the end of it, some of the things. I'm going to read a couple of passages to you. It was it ended up being an inspirational book for me, because granted, she didn't go through what we're going through, but she went through difficult times. She persevered. It was like amazing, and I'm like, if she didn't have a great childhood, I didn't have a great childhood, but she managed to do and be the person that she wanted to do and be, and it was an inspiration for me. It just really was, and I was like, I was telling my cousin, I'm like, I said it kind of is inspiring, because she's been able to do what she wanted to do through her hard times. I can do the same thing. Mine is just different. I remember that, because like during the pandemic, and I had mentioned this before, I think during the pandemic when it started, I was like 3-4 years into this, and we were just starting to go out and talk to organizations when everything shut down. Well, all these Food Network people and, anybody else in television, their jobs got shut down too. And they had to pivot and figure out how they were going to do their shows. And like the Pioneer Woman and Ina and Simon, they pivoted and they had to tape their own shows basically with their iPhones. And it ended up being really cool. But I remember this one show that she and she tells the story in the book that she was cleaning out her basement, and she was telling all her employees, get ready, you got to stock up, we don't know how long the pandemic is gonna last. You need to be able to take care of your family, blah blah blah. And in the basement she found this ginormous cocktail mixer and a ginormous martini glass. And I remember the show, and where and she tells a story in the book that during the pandemic she didn't want to make a joke per se. It was around April Fool's, but she wanted to lighten things up a bit. And she remembered that she had found, this cocktail thing, and it was so funny. And she's not a huge drinker at all, and but during this one show, she mixed up this ginormous martini, and she said, this is in the book. It says, "It's always cocktail hour in a crisis," she posted, tongue in cheek. "During these stressful times, it's really important to keep traditions alive." Oh, there goes my light. And so she poured an entire pitcher or bottle of vodka into this mixer, made this ginormous cosmopolitan, and that she said it was like the size of a bird bath. And she just was trying to make light of the situation. And during the pandemic when it started, it didn't really bother me that much, because, and I've said before, and because everybody was like getting depressed and was down, and it was just really hard for everybody. But it didn't bother me at all, because that's the way I had felt for a few years. And so I was like, and I know it's kind of mean, but I was like, now everybody feels like I do. So, it didn't bother me at all. Plus, being an introvert, I didn't mind having to stay home. And at least then I had a reason, so more than my regular reason. But anyways, it was just kind of funny. And I do remember that show. But she also she talks about some people that she had on her show and that are friends, and when she pivoted to a new show, Be My Guest, I think is one of her newer ones. But she's friends with this there's a chef up north. I think it's like Maine or Connecticut. I can't remember exactly where she is, but she's up there somewhere. And I've seen her show, and she's really neat. And she, this came about too when she was going through a hard time in her life. And her name is Erin French, and she has a place called The Lost Kitchen, where she's only open in the summertime. You have to send a postcard to her, and they pick out only a certain number of people through the summer to each come and have dinner. And there's just probably a couple dozen people in the evening that all come, unless you're coming with your guests, you don't know who else is going to be there. And it's really cool. But she made this quote. Oh, it's in Maine. Yeah, The Lost Kitchen's in Maine. And I thought this was really neat, and it really this was one of the things that made this book so worth me reading. So Erin French wrote, "Sometimes you have to trust the hard times. The pain and the tragedies in life have purpose. They may make no sense at the time, may bring you to your knees, and you will wonder why this hell is happening, and even if you'll ever get through it. But trust is your trajectory, sending you along your path. And if you listen, learn, heal, and grow along the way, things will one day make sense. And even though this book and this whole thing had, absolutely nothing to do with this situation, being a suicide loss survivor, it hit home for me. I really, after reading that, just really sat and thought about it, and it's true. If you work on it, it's hard. This whole thing is hard, and the situation with the world right now, it makes it even harder. But you know what? We can do it. We can. I came across this quote. And I didn't know what I was going to do for this show. Everything, came in like last. I felt bad for my tech guy Joseph. I didn't even get him the stuff for the show until a few hours before. But it was like almost like the perfect quote, and it's a quote from Barack Obama. And I just thought that it was just like the perfect one. Hope is that thing inside us that insists, despite all evidence to the contrary, that something better awaits us if we have the courage to reach for it and to work for it and to fight for it. And that's what we're doing. We're fighting for it. And we can do it. We don't have to do it alone. There's people out there that'll help us. You just have to reach for them. Please remember to have these phone numbers in your phone. Have them memorized. It's easy now. The 988 number. You can be the one to bring hope to someone. Like I always say, and I will continue to say, thank you.